Good evening. I'm David Tolleson, and I'll be your moderator tonight. This forum is sponsored by the East Roswell Alliance, which is composed of leaders representing the elected boards of 15 area neighborhoods. The group is primarily interested in issues affecting the quality of life in our immediate community, though we stand ready to work with like-minded groups from across Roswell and North Fulton. We want to especially thank Barrington Farms and Horseshoe Bend for their financial support for this event. This is the first of 3 candidate forums. The next 2 will be October 21st and is sponsored by the Roswell Women's Club, and the second is October 29th and is sponsored by Roswell Next. We encourage you to attend as many as you can. We're grateful to all our candidates for their willingness to serve, as well as for their participation tonight. All candidates are here except for Post 3 candidate Kay Howell, who had earlier accepted our invitation but then subsequently had a conflict. Our format will be as follows. All candidates will be asked the first 3 questions, which are of broad interest to the community. The order will be changed for each question. Following those initial questions, more questions proposed by members of the community will be posed, 1 post at a time. Respondents have 2 minutes to answer a question, at which point time will be called. If someone mentions another candidate in their answer, that other candidate will be given a 1-minute rebuttal. We have a timekeeper in the front row, with Jake. Candidates, that's your timekeeper, to assist you. At the end of the evening, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. I will now briefly introduce all the candidates. Please hold your applause until the end. If we can keep applause to the minimum, although they deserve it, they'll be able to answer more questions. As a reminder, all Roswell elected officials serve at large. For municipal judge, the incumbent, Brian Hansford, has no opposition. As you may recall, Judge Hansford was elected last year to fill the unexpired term of his predecessor. Judge Hansford is available to speak with each of you individually tonight, or you can contact his office. I know he's here because I already see him. There he is in the back corner. Thank you for being here, Brian. So now I'm going to read a brief bio from each of our candidates. All city council candidates were asked to supply a brief biography. I narrowed them down just to the basic demographic information, your family, how long you've lived here, your job, your education, and cut through the political rhetoric because they're going to fill that in tonight. First, we'll start, and we're going to go down the line. Rich Dippolito, a 14-year Roswell resident. Rich is finishing his 2nd term on the city council. Before that, he served on the Planning Commission. Additionally, he has served on the Roswell Redevelopment Task Force and the Holcomb Ridge East Revitalization Task Force. Rich has over 25 years of experience in architectural design and real estate and is a partner with Roswell-based Concordia Properties, a real estate development firm. He has an architecture degree from the University of Virginia, and when he realized that was inadequate, he came to Georgia. Oh, sorry. I'm a Georgia graduate. He got his MBA from the University of Georgia, where he also met his lovely wife, Catherine. Rich, who is a member of a variety of civic organizations, attends North Point Community Church, along with his wife, Kelly, and their 2 daughters. Marcelo Zapata is a 15-year Roswell resident. He and his wife live in Horseshoe Bend. They moved here from Argentina and have 1 daughter. Marcelo owns a local wine distribution company working with family-owned businesses in Georgia. He has an undergraduate degree in international trade as well as an MBA. Moving on to Post 2, a 12-year Roswell resident, Becky Wynn, is finishing her 2nd term on the city council. Oh, I got y'all out of order. Sorry, Michael, I'll go to you next. A former business owner and community advocate, Becky served as North Fulton liaison to Fulton County Commissioners Mike Penn and Bob Fulton. She helped establish and chair the Fulton County Code Enforcement Board. She also served on Roswell's Design Review Board and is a member of various civic organizations. She and her husband Mike live in Willow Springs and are members of Northminster Presbyterian Church. Now, Mike, you get the build-up now. Mike is a 7-year Roswell resident. He has worked in financial services for the last 9 years and leads a team which partners with corporate clients, negotiates contracts, and provides expertise related to financial reporting. He recently finished the final requirement to receive his MBA from Emory University. Congratulations, Mike. Mike and his wife Melanie were married in 2012 and have a 1-year-old daughter. So for Post 3, hopefully these are going to be in the right order. Shayne Shayne Gray. Donald Shayne Gray, you go by Shayne. Okay. Shayne is an 8th generation Roswellian, so I think you win the prize for the length of time your family's been here. In his work, he's required to establish budgets and implement and enforce procedures designed to streamline efficiency and maximize profitability. Might be a long night, y'all. Shayne is responsible for the performance of 19 individual automobile dealerships across Georgia and Tennessee. Donald Horton. Don's a 19-year resident of Roswell. He received both his undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Michigan. After a first career in music, Don moved into financial services and is now a chartered financial consultant. He is completing his 8th year as president of the club at North Point and is a member of several civic organizations, including the Roswell Initiative for Community Housing. Don and his wife Gail have been married for 45 years and have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. He is an ordained elder at Roswell Presbyterian Church. 29. All right. Kay, as I mentioned, is not here. Nathan Porter. Nathan and his wife have lived in Roswell since 2011, arriving shortly after their marriage. A native of California who grew up in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, worst places to grow up. Nathan has been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years. He and his wife are the parents of 2 daughters. And finally, Ricky Spencer, a Roswell resident for over 60 years. Ricky spent 23 years with the Fulton County Fire Department. He was appointed as Roswell's fire chief in 2003, retiring in 2014. He, his wife Joanna, and their children live on Upper Henry Road. Let's give all our candidates a round of applause and thank them for that were of such broad community interest. We're actually going to ask it of all candidates so we can get them on the record. And for the first one, we're just going to start with Rich and go all the way down to the end. And then after that, we'll start with post 2, then post 3, and then we'll come back. So the first question is, the revised Riverwalk application is with city staff and was recently presented to the public at last week's neighborhood meeting. How do you see Riverwalk as presented in the application matching what is envisioned for this property in the 2030 comprehensive plan? As an elected official, what role do you see yourself playing as the application moves forward?
Thank you, David. And thank you to the East Roswell Alliance for putting on this event. This takes a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for being willing to moderate. It's probably nice to be on the other side of the questions.
It is. It's a great thing.
I was at the neighborhood meeting last week and heard a lot of great feedback from the community. And I think it's important as an elected official to hear from the community to really understand what people want and what people desire. And there was a lot that I heard at the meeting. And I think one of the things that was very clear that people were not happy about it. 8 years ago, when I was running for council initially, I took a very strong position against the Roswell East Charlie Brown project that was proposed at the time on this very property. And this project is actually even larger than that one. A lot of people have asked me, well, how does it compare to something like Avalon? It's actually multiple times larger than Avalon. And probably the most telling feature of all of this is if you look at the existing zoning, it's so significantly larger than that, it's almost hard to fathom the magnitude of it. One of the things that we really need to be concerned about is that it doesn't match the comprehensive plan. There was some discussion at the meeting about whether it matched the comprehensive plan or not, and I think the attorney was trying to justify it. But in my mind, what the comprehensive plan called for, and probably a lot of the people in this room and what the neighborhood really asked for, is they wanted 3-story buildings along Old Alabama, going up to maybe some 6-story buildings closer to 400. This project is nothing like that. It's really inconsistent with what I believe the community wants and the community is asking for. So my role as an elected official is to really review this, take a good hard look at it, hear from the neighborhood, and make sure that we get a project that's consistent with what the neighbors are looking for.
Good evening. Thank you for being all here with us today. Hello to my East Roswell neighbors. Thank you very much for the East Roswell Alliance for organizing this event. So I was also at the meeting last week, and I was able to hear the presentation from the land developer. It's not the real final developer. And what this came to my attention is, first, the infrastructure we have today, does it support this kind of mega project or not? And then if you look forward for new infrastructure that definitely will be required, we have to go through some kind of obstacles. Like, we have the river on the south, we have 400 on the west, we have a well-established community on the east, Martin's Landing, and then we have the very nice and busy that we all drive, Horton Bridge and 400. So we need to think about really how much infrastructure we need and how possible it is to do more infrastructure. So the other point is, like I noticed, because I asked the question regarding the data that support this kind of project, and particularly I was asking about the office building data. How much infrastructure, how much office building do we have vacant in Roswell? Do we need another 3 or 1 million square foot office building in the area? Are we maxed out with the capacity of office in Roswell? And they replied, sorry, we don't have this information. We will find out this after is rezoning the property. So I think it's not the right approach to get this kind of mega project. Thank you.
It is on. Excellent. So I am opposed to the size and the scope of the current Riverwalk plan, and a major part of my concern, and top concern, is that it does not line up with the comprehensive plan. I was also at the neighborhood meeting, which I think is very important to really hear what does the community want when it comes to different projects, specifically when there are rezoning requests. And the lawyer representing the developer, she specifically called out that I believe there was only one variance, but there was also a conditional use change and some other aspects of it. So I think it's really very important that we line up specifically the comprehensive plan. She also specifically called out the fact that the comprehensive plan does say that there is the ability to trade additional density for additional green space, and that is absolutely right. That is in the comprehensive plan. But I think the key that's being missed is we need, as city council, we need to see city council do more to actually listen to the community and really see what that appropriate trade-off is. Because I think Riverwalk actually really highlights two major parts of my platform and why I'm running. I currently, feel that the current city council isn't taking enough really account and direction from the people of Roswell. I want to really increase participation, increase direction, and make sure city council is listening. And number two, around development, I want to make sure that we're developing strategically. I very much support development. I want to see some things happen at Riverwalk and realize that there can be some great development there, but I want us to make sure we're cautious about it and also specifically focus on the fact that city council affects rezoning, controls rezoning, and that has an effect on transportation and other infrastructure, and it is irresponsible to really rezone without taking into account the infrastructure that supports it. And that is specifically in the comprehensive plan as well. In bold, it specifically mentions transportation enhancements are required in order for a big project to go in place.
Excuse me, I've got a little catch right here. Since this is a rezoning from a 1986 site plan, I think that the 2030 comp plan needs to kick in. And this is for such items such as village-like characteristics, including green space, connectivity to the river and to Big Creek Parkway. And while I am bound as an elected official by state law that does not allow me to prejudge a project, I can say what my concerns are, and I have concerns about this project. I think it's mass. The massiveness of this project is just too much. The impact on the affected communities, the impact on the existing infrastructure that would have to handle approximately 28,000 additional car trips per day. and there's no definitive plans for phasing in this development. If approved, and again, I'm using that word, if approved, I will put in place conditions that have been suggested to me by residents that's going to be geared toward phasing of the project, including completed transportation improvements for that project, and ratio guarantees like they have in Avalon that will ensure that the project be developed in manageable phases according to the site plan. And I just found out today when I was at City Hall, they are now redesigning the site plan once again. And to me, that says a whole lot right there.
Okay, to be honest with you, I really look at this site plan. I was at the meeting. It's a disaster. It's a disaster on epic proportions. We are going to put 28,000 cars a day onto a road that can't have to elected officials. We have to stand firm. We have to go by the true intent of the 2030 and hold Riverwalk accountable, the developers of Riverwalk accountable. We cannot allow this development in its current state to be developed in anywhere near the size or density that it is. I am all for trading green space for density, but not to this level at all. Thank you.
My concern about this project is that, first of all, it's 17% larger than Avalon. Avalon is not complete yet. We don't even know how successful that's ultimately going to be. We have Avalon on that side of Roswell, and then on the south, over by the perimeter, we have another mixed-use kind of development, and then you have Atlantic Station. So this project, and as large as it is purely speculative. And for us to allow that kind of speculative development to occur, I think is just simply out of the question. And if you look at the infrastructure, if you're going up at Old Alabama up 400, that can't handle any additional traffic there. And down on the other side, on the riverside, it's just going to be more and more congestion. I just don't see how this can possibly be approved in this form. What I would like to encourage, though, is for the developer or developers to sit down with leaders of the various neighborhoods and to discuss what kinds of things might work that would be beneficial not only to the developer but also to the neighborhoods. I've been through that with my own HOA and several HOA presidents when we saw a couple of high-density development programs coming through our neighborhoods, and we were able to sit down with one of those developers and come up with a plan that was satisfactory to everybody that was affected by it. And if developers would start doing that, I think we would have a whole lot happier community.
One of the things I'd like to just remind everybody about Avalon is for an extended period of time before Avalon became Avalon, it sat as a partially completed project. It sat as a partially completed project because an unexpected downturn in the economy prevented things from continuing on. And the exact same thing can easily happen to a project of this nature in the exact same area. Now, while I like the idea and I like the concept of Riverwalk, I like the idea of the mixed use and everything being compacted, the school being there, the plan was great. One of the problems that's already been pointed out, though, is the traffic is an issue. And what I think is important is before we even take on a project like this, we need to address what the actual issue is, and we need to address the traffic concerns first. We need to actually address, deal with, come up with solutions, and fix those problems before we decide to add an extra 20,000 cars onto the road. If we can take those steps first, if we can take the steps to alleviate the traffic and the issues that we're already dealing with before we compound, I think that a development like that is going to be a lot more successful. It's going to have a lot easier of a chance for people to come in and out of it. People are going to want to come in and out of it. The other concept behind it that I kind of noticed is that it's targeted towards millennials, and this is one of the reasons why I agree that it's a very speculative project. It is targeted towards millennials. The idea is they're gonna work, eat, live, play, and do all of that there. My question is, how are they going to afford to? As a millennial, I'm an exception in the sense that I own a home at my age, that I own my own business. Most millennials live with their parents. They have student loan debt. They have college tuition that they have to pay for, even if they dropped out. And the idea of them being able to move into these 1,100, proposed complex units, they're going to be, 12, 13, 15, they're going to have to be expensive to be able to afford that project. I think it's illusions of grandeur. I think it's a very far stretch from what reality will be able to provide. Thank you.
Riverwalk in its current state and the plan that they have on board now is something that I just can't support. I want to speak on a few good things that I see with Avalon, Riverwalk. It will replace some of the blighted areas that we have over there. It will help ease overcrowding of Esther Jackson School when it's rebuilt. And the Swift School is a great asset to Roswell. And here's some of the things that I think are just too much for this development. Traffic. We all agree that traffic is terrible now, and it's only going to make it worse. There's really not a lot we can do about the traffic. The roads are as wide as we're going to get. 400 is a mess morning and night, and the apartments on that development are going to be so dense. Over 1,100 apartments. If they take Range 3 out, which they will to build it, they're going to take about 400 apartments out of it and replace it with 1,100 apartments. That doesn't work. Length of time of the project. How long is the project going to take? It could be another Avalon. It could get started, we could have a downfall in the economy, and everything shuts down, and we got a mess over there on 400 Horton Ridge. My responsibility as a city elected official, I need to review the application. I need to look at it as it goes through the stages and it gets conditions put on it. I need to be very open to that. Second thing is I need to listen to you. You're the people that's going to affect most. And I need to listen to what you have to say and act accordingly. And finally, I have to make a decision on all aspects of the plan from the beginning to the end. Not to downgrade, not to be against it when it's first started, but to be for it or against it when it's just before it hits the mayor and council. So that's what I feel about Riverwalk. I think it's good, but then I think it's bad and it's currently my council support. Thank you.
We're going to move on now to our second question, and we will start with post 2, and we'll go in reverse order. So Becky, you'll get this one first, and then we will go to post 3, and start with Ricky and work the reverse, and then to post 1, and Marcelo goes first. So everybody gets to go first sometime. So the question is, and Becky, you get it first. Yes or no? Do you support acquisition of the entire 7 branches property, both the high ground and the low, using city funds? If so, what will you do to ensure that the property is protected either through existing funds or a bond referendum? And what is your timeline for that happening?
Well, I do believe in preserving green space wherever and whenever possible. And for instance, the 7 branches is, I think, very unique with its old growth. And the limiting retreats, the streams, the potential connectivity between the park and the library, Horseshoe Bend, Martin's Landing, and the river. And what else I just found out a couple of weeks ago are that there's artifacts on this property also. So I would like for the city, first of all, to probably do some type of archaeological study on this property to see exactly what is on it. I think that's one of my first things I would like to see done. But I think there are creative ways of buying this piece of property, and I think bond referendum is one way of doing it. The only problem is the bond referendum that we're looking at isn't until 2017. So that's probably a little bit too far away from what we want to do to save 7 branches. So again, I'm not sure exactly how we could do it, but I know that I'm going to work my darndest to preserve this piece of property because I think it's very unique, and it would actually put us over 1,000 acres of parkland in the city of Roswell, which I think is just phenomenal for the size of our city is to have over 1,000 acres of parkland. And again, I will do whatever I can possibly do to convince my colleagues and my mayor that this is a piece of land that needs to be saved and preserved for not just us, but for the future of our families and our grandkids.
First of all, yes, I fully support the city acquiring this park. And really my logic behind that is simple. It's really, when you look at my platform and you think about why Mike Palermo is running, it's really that I want to make sure that Roswell continues to be the best city in all of Metro Atlanta. At the moment, I have my one daughter who's 1 year old. God willing, we'll have a bigger family. And I want to make sure that my family gets to grow up in a great place with lots of green space, place for us to walk our dog and just enjoy. And another part of my platform, you see the fact that in established neighborhoods, I'm very against that. There's been a number of incumbent votes supporting much higher density. I have really a lot of concerns about my housing value because frankly, I want eventually my house to appreciate and to be able to pay for a child's college, or for our retirement. And I stand by that Roswell having the best parks in the area is going to really support our home values because this is a place that people want to live. People want to have parks. People don't want to be surrounded by just nothing but townhomes or apartment buildings. So, and for the second part of the question on really dealing with how I see us going about it, I do see a bond being a good approach. I do have concerns that I feel we need to see city council leadership acting with more urgency. I don't want to see this opportunity be missed. But so I would definitely be open to discussing with the community other options as well. But Juan was really aware that I was looking at all that.
Thank you. Now we're going to jump over. You hit this one first.
Thank you. This parcel of land reminds me of the Lita Thompson Park in Woodstock. For those of you that lived in Roswell a long time, you know the area that I'm talking about. The topography is like it's going to be a builder's nightmare. I wondered why it sat so long until I went and walked that property as well as walked the Lita Thompson Park. I can get behind this project right now, but I have some concerns. I'm all about preserving green space. The walking trails along the creek where the history of our settlers will be great. Connectivity possibilities, and this could be designated as a passive park. You know, no ball fields or nothing like that. You couldn't do it anyway, but trails would not be seen from Horton Bridge Road, which is great. They'd be running up the creek. I'm a little concerned about the price of the property. That's a lot of money, and I don't know where the money's going to come from. And I agree with some of my other folks up here is that, yes, a bond project would probably be the best way to go. The one thing that I'm really concerned with is if we put a park there and we preserve that green space, where are people going to park? There's nowhere for them to park. So is there an area in Marsh Haven where a road may go into this property on the backside that a parking area could be constructed? I don't know. We're buying space and we're buying property, but we don't have anywhere for anybody to park, to go visit the park and use it. So that's a problem. So again, I like the idea of a bond referendum, and I think that would be the way to go. But I'd like to see the city and the property owners, as I understand there may be 3 or 4 other property owners, try to work together to see if they could donate some of this land. Instead of sitting there getting fat off rich off the amount of money they're going to get for this, about $5 million. If it was that important, it would have already been sold.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the parking that is being envisioned for this property would be at East Roswell Park, and people would walk in on a multi-use trail. So there currently isn't a plan, that's been proposed for parking on the property, except we would walk in from either the new parking lot on the east or further into the property. All right, Nick.
Personally, I'm against it. I'm against it because there's wants and then there's needs. We don't need more green space. We have a lot of green space here. I'm not opposed to getting more green space in the future, but again, there's wants and there's needs, and the biggest issue right now is transportation. The biggest issue is the traffic that we're dealing with here in the city. And if we're spending money on projects like green space that could be going to fixing problems like transportation, the way I see it is we're just wasting money. Again, I want to go back to what I said earlier. Let's deal with the actual problems that the city is facing first before we decide to invest in higher development. The same way I want to deal with the problems that the city is facing with before we start wasting money on vanity projects. Because that's what we're doing right now in a project like this. We're wasting money on a vanity project when we could be investing money to solve our transportation issues. So I'm not against it when we have the funds and all of our other problems solved, but at this moment of time I am.
I actually do like the idea of acquiring this property, and there are ways to do it that wouldn't necessarily cost the city an entire $5 million. Each of those property owners has the opportunity, if they're willing to look into it, and maybe the city needs to help them do this, but there's what we call a preservation land trust. And that preservation land trust allows people to donate natural land like this to the city or any other nonprofit, and in return, it becomes a land trust that cannot be developed for anything else but park-like areas, and then they get significant tax benefits for it. So my idea would be to do the research, bring in some people that are experts in preservation land trust, sit down with the owners and with members of the city council and see if we can come away with an idea that would work for them and for the city as well. And I think the idea of this legacy project is, I think it's a great one. There's very little large open space remaining in Roswell right now. And if we can preserve a large area like this and make it into a park, a place where we have bike trails and hiking trails and that sort of thing, I think it's one of the best things that we can do for our city. But there are ways to do it that would not necessarily cost the city the full $5 million, as I said before. And then the other thing is, we're spending about $15 million, or thinking about spending $15 million on the City Green project. Why not use some of that money instead for this project?
Yeah.
100% support it. I believe it's the best 5.3, if that's what it ends up being, $1 million that we end up spending. However, what we have, and to be honest with you, the 4 landowners that can charge whatever they want, doesn't mean that they're going to get it, they can ask for it. I think that that is their starting price, and I'm in the car business, everything's negotiable. So, I think when we bring a cash offer to the table, and we look them dead square in the eyes and we say, here's what we're willing to do. Here's what the citizens of Roswell are willing to do. We are willing to put money behind this project. However, we need concession from you. I absolutely, in my heart, feel that money talks. They can ask, doesn't mean they're going to get it. I'll back this up with, if we don't proceed with purchasing this property, let's talk speculation for one quick second. I don't want to start on a ramble here, but most of this property, I walked this property, and most of it is completely unbuildable. But there is buildable property here. And as we know, in the 2030, hey, we can trade green space for density. And that's a slippery slope, because to make it feasible for it to be built, it's going to create density unlike anything you've ever seen.
So, yes. No. Yes, I totally support this idea. This is a great project. But if we could find the money in the budget or raise the money, like Ron just said, like the Reservation Land Trust is a good option. That I don't know how much we have been looking into this in Roswell in the last few years. We are running out of green space to develop a city parks in Roswell, and 7 branches would be a very good opportunity to expand our park. It's also in a very populated area, so this means that it's going to get a lot of use. We have a lot of people and high, big subdivisions in the area that definitely will get good use of this park. This property will be a great addition to the park system and a treasure to the future generations.
To me, this is a quality of life issue. One of the things that I've been talking about quite a bit lately is the fact that we need to protect and enhance our quality of life. One of the key components of that I see is preserving our natural areas and investing in our parks. So this plays exactly into the direction that I'm wanting to take our city, that we really focus on our quality of life. I think this is an important project. Of course, there are some concerns about the price of it. I think it is expensive. I think there have been some good ideas up here about ways that we can fund it, ways that we need to negotiate. I talked with Tuck Tucker, who's one of the key people leading the charge on this, and talked about some ideas about providing tax incentives, and considering a lease purchase, finding a corporate sponsor, and involving a trust for public land. So I think there are options. I think ultimately, though, it's really up for the voters to decide. This is a fairly large project. It's a fairly large acquisition. I think it would be great to bring out 4 bonds so that we get the opinion of the public. And what does the public really want to do? Is this where they want to spend their money? One of the things that excites me about it, I actually was out there today. I was driving by, and I decided, it's such a beautiful day, I'm going to stop and walk the trail one more time. There's just a phenomenal old roadbed down at the bottom, and it's so nice to be sitting there or walking along there, and you can hear the creek, well, you hear the traffic. You still have a sense that you're in this urban forest. It's really very cool. And one of the ideas that I have for us moving forward as a city is to take trails like that and weave them throughout our city. Wouldn't it be fabulous if we could have greenways all throughout our community where you could just connect to sidewalks and multi-use trails, and then get off of those, get down into trails, walk along the creeks. What a phenomenal system we could have. Would be a linear park system that connects the 900 acres of parkland that we already have. This could be a good piece of that. It would fit into that overall plan. So I look forward to bringing this forward, getting some feedback from the community, and finding out if this is an investment that our voters want to make.
The last question that we will be asking all 8 of you. We'll start with post 3, and we're going to go in this order. The other 2 posts are kind of easy. It's one first, the other first, one first, the other first. Post 3, y'all are a little complicated. So, write this down. It's going to be Don, Nathan, Shayne, Ricky. That's how we're going to do this one. And we're going to start with post 3. So, Don, you're going to be up first. For several years, Roswell zoning code has required that sidewalks be installed in all new neighborhoods. What is your position on retrofit sidewalks in existing subdivisions in the city of Roswell? What is your position on the city paying for these sidewalks and or assessing the subdivision's residents for the construction? The last part is, what is your position on the city paying for these sidewalks and or assessing the subdivision's residents for the construction?
Well, first of all, I think the idea of bike paths, sidewalks, trails, sidewalks and that sort of thing going through subdivisions is a good idea, because especially the newer subdivisions. Sidewalks do improve the safety for pedestrians. We know that for a fact. And I think the connectivity that they provide is good. However, when it comes to the older subdivisions where no sidewalks were required before, I would say that the residents of that subdivision should be asked to say yay or nay to that kind of a project. And then in terms of paying for it, once again, it's up to the residents. If they want to have sidewalks in their neighborhood, then I think they should be willing to be assessed for that particular project.
I agree. I 100% support the new developments having sidewalks built in with them. I think that they're good for us to have. I think they're good for pedestrian safety, all of the above. And just as I think it's very important that retrofit that needs to take place in an older subdivision. It should be up to the subdivision, the HOA, to determine whether or not those sidewalks are going to go in, and if they are, then it should be determined up to them as far as how it's going to be paid for.
I hope I'm next. I think about it.
You are indeed next.
Anybody ever been hit by a car before? I have. It's not fun. Fully support sidewalks in every new road being built in Roswell. Tell you a quick story. My wife was walking my 12-pound poodle about 3 months ago in our subdivision, which half has sidewalks, half does not. Wexford, the new half has it. My wife was walking her dog. She almost got hit at a one-way stop. It should be a three-way stop. I am leading the charge in my subdivision of Wexford to install, in the older section, which is where we live, to install sidewalks. I don't want to lose my wife. I certainly don't want to lose my poodle. And I don't want to lose my life. My wife and I, we are avid runners, 100%. We run a lot. If you spend time on a bike or running, this type of infrastructure is necessary for the continued growth and the continued magnetism for millennials. I'm not a millennial. I'm a Generation X, but I study generational science. My wife is a millennial. And that is one of the top things that millennials look for when they move into a community. Now remember, millennials have gone to college. I beg to differ. I don't think they're living in their parents' basement anymore, because as they get older, the parents get tired and they kick them out. And they downsize to the townhomes in Roswell. But I truly believe that every street that is being built today needs gutters and sidewalks, and it needs to be fully funded by the city. In older communities such as mine, it's our job as citizens in that community to take care of that for us.
So just to clarify if I can, on older subdivisions,
It needs to be paid for by the That needs to be paid for by the citizens of that subdivision by the HOA. Absolutely.
thank you. Okay, and Ricky?
I totally agree that sidewalks need to be on every street in Roswell. They don't have to be on both sides of the road. One side is fine. And some people won't, some people don't. There's $250,000 in the 2016 budget for sidewalk construction, and there's $250,000 more for the same budget for sidewalk connectivity. There's also a $100,000 connectivity challenge grant for public-private partnerships to construct sidewalks in older neighborhoods. Now, I understand we have one neighborhood that wants to get sidewalks in their subdivision. Well, in order for the city to be part of that, I think that it needs to be a public-private partnership. It has to be, my understanding, it has to be 65 to 70% of the homeowners in that subdivision that want to participate in this. And if they come to the city and ask the city, can we put sidewalks in, and you give us the right of way, give us permission to use the right of way, then I think that's acceptable. But I do agree with my other folks up here that, yes, the people in the neighborhoods, if they want sidewalks, should share, if not pay for the entire amount of sidewalks that are put in that subdivision. Thank you.
And just as a point of clarification, if that is the case and there's this partnership, how would you feel about the city government being involved in assessing, after this approval is received from the 65%, how would you feel about the city being involved in the assessment?
I disagree with that. I don't think the city should be involved in that. That should be up to the homeowners association or the percentage of people that are in the subdivision that require and request that the sidewalks be built, that they get their own money, like the city or contractors will do. I don't think the city should be involved.
Thank you. Moving on to post one, Rich.
Thank you. If I had my brothers, there would be a sidewalk on both sides of every street in the city of Roswell. Unfortunately, that's a pretty expensive endeavor to try to make that happen. When I was on the planning commission, we had planes that were coming through and they had sidewalks just on one side of the street. And I sat next to a woman named Lorelei, who got to be good friends, and we became advocates for sidewalks. And every time a project came through, we insisted that there could be sidewalks on both sides of the street. So when first got into council, the very first thing that I did was I sponsored a new ordinance that requires all new developments to have sidewalks on both sides of the street. And I think it's great for new developments, but we do have that problem. What about the existing subdivisions that don't currently have them? Well, there's a lot of them, and not only are there a lot of subdivisions that don't have sidewalks, we also have a lot of needs for sidewalks that are out in the public right-of-way. And I think we do need to fund all the public right-of-way sidewalks first, but absolutely and open to figuring out a way to partner with neighborhoods to provide the sidewalks. Now, I do believe that the residents of those subdivisions ought to pay for that. There are ways that we can work together to make that happen. We can either put the money on tax bills or figure out a way to help support them through a bond program. There are a lot of different ways that we can do that, but I think that it is important enough that the city needs to be involved, and we need to figure out a way to partner with these communities to make it happen. Roswell is getting to be more and more of a walkable community. And walkable to some people means density. To me, it does not. I think you can have a walkable community anywhere. Right in this immediate area, if we had sidewalks and multi-use trails all around Centennial High School, you could get to the retail, you could get to the library, you could get to the park, you could get to all the various neighborhoods. So if we had sidewalks everywhere that we needed them, which really could be a walkable community. And I think that's the direction that people in this community really want. They really want to be able to get out, to be able to walk, and to be able to enjoy this beautiful weather we have here in Roswell.
Well, hello. Okay. So, how many people here from Horton? Okay, I see a few. How many do you walk to the school today? So, well, my point is here that it depends on every subdivision. You cannot paint with the same brush every single subdivision, especially the one that they already established. So, you have to also keep the character of the well-established subdivision. And if the HOA and the resident, the majority of the resident wants a sidewalk, well, that's fine. They can go ahead and do the sidewalk. And on a new project, the same thing. It's up to the developer if contemplate sidewalks for the new development or not. So I support sidewalk, but I mean, we're talking about sidewalk. But it's on the smart sidewalk. I mean, we're talking about sidewalk everywhere. But you have places where you need and places what you really don't need. For example, in front of the exit of Horton, a lot of kids walk to Centennial, and you can see that walk because you see that there's no grass where they walk by. There, totally makes sense to think about a sidewalk there. So my point is, I will consider sidewalk where they make sense and they respect the character of the neighborhood.
So with new neighborhoods, I absolutely support there should be sidewalks in every new neighborhood. But this question is an important one. This question is specifically about retrofitting sidewalks in older neighborhoods or existing neighborhoods. And for that to be required, I believe would be overreach from the city, from the government. So if there's the intention or the motivation to want sidewalks, then that should be decided by the neighborhood. And by decided by the neighborhood, it should be a true majority. So not just a small quorum, not just an inner circle or a certain group, but it should be a true majority within the neighborhood. And with that, it should be the individuals that want the sidewalk paying for the sidewalk, because I feel our tax dollars could be better spent in endeavors that would benefit more of the city than just a specific neighborhood. And I have a lot of concerns with assessing a group of residents that do not want sidewalks to have to pay for them. And specifically, I do want to call out that although sidewalks do create some safety in certain scenarios, there are certain scenarios where sidewalks could actually create a danger as well. When you're retrofitting, there are bushes, there are trees, there are things that can affect visibility, in which case backing out of the driveway, etc., could create risks. So again, when it comes to retrofitting, this really should be a decision that's left up to the neighbors and making sure that it's not being forced on them.
Well, our transportation plan is a broad plan addressing road improvements, connectivity, traffic flow, and other considerations which I strongly support. And sidewalk and multi-use trail additions and sidewalk connectivity are a big piece of this plan. So if we want walkable communities, then we need a policy in place to outline that criteria to add sidewalks in specific locations. In fact, the city council, mayor and council right now are in the process of writing a policy that includes, and I'm going to read the statement to you. If a private resident or business owner is interested in a project on a local road that is outside the city's sidewalk policy, the city will agree to construct the project in return for 100% private contribution and letters of approval from every impacted property owner. That is in our policy draft as of today. And I would encourage all of you who are interested in this to attend the next Community Development Transportation Committee meeting to hear firsthand the information on these items. Because what we need to do is hear from you what you think that this policy should say. So, and I think it's the fourth Wednesday of this month. Please check the website if I'm wrong. But we are in the process of writing a policy to address retrofitting in sidewalks in older subdivisions and neighborhoods.
Thank you. Just to clarify on the policy as it currently stands, it requires 100% participation. So if Shayne's neighborhood, they're looking at the retrofitting there, got 95%, 99% of the donations of the right of way or the participation, it still couldn't go forward under the current policy. Is that correct?
Well, we do not have a policy for retrofitting. This is a new policy.
So this is what is being considered now.
This is
the
what's being
100%?
considered now. What we have is a sidewalk connectivity resolution that we are revising that will add additional priorities such as walkability to commercial establishments and improvements to worn trails. But this is a brand new policy that we're calling a partnership policy. And since this is a guidance, we have not voted on it. It's still going to committee. As Dr. Wynn saying, anybody who's very interested in how this policy is written, my subdivision, Willow Springs, is the one that really initiated this. Thank you that we did this. But it's still, the wording is still out there, and the wording needs to be worked on.
It's hard to get 100% of anybody to agree on anything.
Well, what this says is 100% of it would be private contribution, so the city would not pay any letters whatsoever, and it says letters of approval from every impacted property owner, so that language can also change.
All right, thank you. So if you're one of the people that suggested this question, we got some meetings ahead of us. Okay, now we're moving into post-by-post questions. So Marcelo, you're going to be up first. And the question for our post one candidates is, last year the City Council replaced the old zoning code with the new Unified Development Code and Design Guidelines, or UDC for short. What do you like about the new code and what do you dislike? What, if anything, would you change about the code?
Be working. Sorry, that was me.
Thanks. So, regarding the UDC, what I think is they missed was they removed the density as a zoning requirement. And also, that did not include an infrastructure clause that required infrastructure to be able to accommodate new development. So I think that, overall it's good. It's just regarding the density, which is the main discussion that we're having this election and the main concern that all of us, the residents, are worried about. And the infrastructure, which are very tied to each other, because my belief is that you do infrastructure first, development later. You don't bring more people to the same infrastructure. You just make miserable the life of the previous residents plus the new residents. So those are the 2 points that I would like to review as a future city council regarding the UDC.
One of the things I like about the UDC is that it's so much easier to understand than the old code. The old code we had was 10 years old, and it was very confusing. And it was confusing not just for the city staff and for anybody coming in to try to build something, but it was confusing for all of you. The people who really need to take a look at the code and understand what's being proposed, and to really understand what exactly is being proposed here. What are the rules? Well, that was really hard. And if you were a resident taking a look at a project under the old code, it really was a challenge to figure out. I started off my political career as a neighborhood advocate. I was president of my HOA, and we had a high-density residential project that was being proposed right next door to us. And it took a long time for me to sift through the old code, try to understand what was in there, what I needed to do, what opportunities the developer had. It was really quite a challenge. So I think one of the things that this, oh, by the way, we were able to defeat that, so that was pretty exciting. But what the new code does is it actually simplifies it. It adds a lot of pictures. It simplifies the language. It cleans up a lot of things that have changed over time. So I think it makes it really helpful. Another thing that it does is it added mixed-use categories. We didn't have a mixed-use category. So if somebody had an old commercial shopping center that they wanted to redevelop, there really wasn't an opportunity to do mixed use. We had an MPMUD, which was created for a very specific piece of property. And it really couldn't be replicated and used a second time. So I think it's really important that we have those mixed-use opportunities to help us try to redevelop some of these older shopping centers and the older apartment complexes. I think there are plenty of opportunities along our major corridors to have mixed use, and this is one way that we can make that happen. And I have been getting a lot of feedback about the density issue. One of the ways that we were thinking it was being controlled was by the buffers and the setbacks and the buildable areas, so ultimately it limits what you can put on the property. But absolutely, I'm more than open to looking at that and discussing density limits. If that's something that people are uncomfortable, we absolutely need to revisit that and take another look at it.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to post 2 and your question. Becky, you'll be going first this time.
Thank you.
I'm trying to keep up with you. According to 2 recent articles written by Jonathan Copsey at the Review and News, just over 33% of Roswell's housing stock is renter-occupied. In absolute numbers, Roswell's 11,235 rental units are 3,600 more than that of the next closest North Fulton city, Alpharetta. Are you happy with those numbers? If so, why? If not, what do you think is the correct ratio, and what specific steps do you intend to take to make that happen, whether it's higher or lower?
Well, first of all, I didn't read that article, so I'm a little in the dark on this one. But if you're talking about multifamily, this is one thing that I think the UDC has done. It's giving the city council the responsibility of doing conditional use for apartments now in the city. It used to be a right in the historic district. Now it's a conditional use. I think apartments are necessary, but I also think that what we need to do is anytime anybody wants to come into an apartment, you take out old apartments before you put in new. And I think that's what's going to help keep our ratio down to where we need to have it down. I think apartments are necessary for our millennials and our workforce housing. And I think we have 104 again at the Roswell Housing Authority, which I think is going to help with our workforce housing. But a ratio of residential to commercial, and I'm assuming that's what you're asking me. That's very hard to say because Roswell is known as a bedroom community, so I think we are leaning more toward residential. But that's how come what Councilmember Dippolito said, and I do agree with it, is with the mixed use that we have added to the UDC and the variety of housing that we have added, I think that's going to help out a lot.
So really on this topic, a big focus of mine is first of all, supply and demand. So when we're having these different proposals to have a lot more apartments or a lot more townhomes, then I think I have concerns with that and how that will affect our home values, how that will affect our community. So really on this specific topic, what I feel we need to do is we need to look specifically at, again, what does the community want? And specifically around that, we have a current plan we discussed earlier, Riverwalk, that has actually a total of about, it's being proposed about 1,500 housing units. The majority of those apartments, I am aware that some of those are townhomes, some of those are senior living, but the majority of those are apartments. And that's just an example where I am concerned with having the supply and demand and how that will affect. And in general, what I want to specifically say as well is the fact that when you cram a lot of townhomes and you cram a lot of apartments, then what that potentially does, it affects our quality of life. Because really, I see it as irresponsible to be rezoning for so many additional housing units when the current infrastructure cannot handle it. So for example, we discussed earlier with the Riverwalk, the effect that having traffic. That's not the only one. So as we're aware, the current city council made they voted in and supported a very dense project at Faust Road. And that's just another example there. What I feel is we have a lot of area which is great to develop commercial. We have a lot of abandoned strip malls. And in these, what I'd like to specifically see, these are areas where I would be supportive of having some great new developments, both mixed use of commercial and residential, but I'm very cautious of when it's in neighborhoods and affecting that.
Moving on to close three, and I'm trying to keep up with who went when, but this time we're going to try this order. Nathan, Shayne, Ricky, and Don. So that's going to go up and down the table here. None of you have served in elected office, but one of you will starting in January. Why are you uniquely qualified to be elected to the city council? Specifically, why should people vote for you?
We vote for you, a talented individual, as an opportunity to meet every single one of them, and everyone's qualified in their own right. I think the question really goes to what separates me from the other people on here. And the first thing I'm going to say is that I'm a millennial. I come from a younger generation, which is a different perspective that the city council of Roswell has never ever seen on the city council before. But not only am I a millennial, I'm a millennial that is a business owner. I have a family, I have a wife, I have 2 kids. I own a house here in Roswell. I'm actually established in the community. My business is also here in Roswell. So not only do I own my home here, but I'm really invested in the Roswell community. My business and my wife's business are both established here in the community. I employ 8 people here in the local community. The reason why you should elect me as opposed to other people here is not only do I come with a nice, new, fresh perspective, but I'm also a young individual that has a track record of having run a successful business. That business is bookkeeping, dealing with people's finances. I have over 200 clients throughout the entire United States in 40 different states, small business owners that come to me and my business to pay attention to their finances and cut out anything useless, anything unnecessary, so that they can stay in business longer, so that they can help turn a profit. And I 100% guarantee that I'll take that same skill set directly into the council chambers, and I will look for every single wasteful thing that we could possibly spend money on and do everything in my power to cut it. And I want to do that not just because I'm fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative, but when you talk about handing stuff to future generations, for some of you guys, I am your grandkid. Some of you, I'm your great-grandkid. I am that future generation, and I don't want to be strapped with the debt that some of these projects that you guys are talking about is going to bring to my generation. I want to make sure that I can afford to live in Roswell in the future. That taxes don't become so high, or the market value becomes so high that I'm priced out of where I live.
Well, since I've started running, I've been asked this question probably 64,000 times, so it is affectionately known in my household as the $64,000 question. But it's very easy for me. I go back 8 generations in Roswell. I have Roswell in my DNA. It's who I am. My father was born in a house that my grandfather built on Barrington Drive in 1911. My grandfather built it in 1911. My dad wasn't born in 1911. He wanted me to make that perfectly clear, just so you know. But I love Roswell. This is my home. This is where me and my wife have decided to live and raise our children. Unfortunately, we don't have any yet, but we're working on that. And hopefully, in the next few years, I'll be able to say that I do have family here. But I will say this: when it comes to Roswell, and it comes to where I see that we are right now, and where I see that we're going, it's a very slippery slope. I want to clarify one thing that I said earlier. When it comes to the word density, I'm not scared of density. I don't run from it. It doesn't terrify me. I lived in the Heritage at Roswell for 7 years, and before that I lived in Liberty. And I'm not afraid of density. But what I am afraid of is the enormous traffic that the density brings. If you have density, but you have extremely well thought out traffic management plans, it's a whole different ballgame. And I'm not talking about multiple ways to walk. I'm talking about, which is obviously very important with me being a runner, but it's very important, unfortunately, with our situation, we are car-based. I see us moving towards a time and a place where we are more walkable, but right now we are car-based. We have to have development with multiple entrances and egresses. Thank you.
Why am I the best candidate for city council? I have worked for the city of Roswell for 39 years. I have attended numerous, exactly 250 council meetings in the past 10 years. I have participated in council meetings. I've had meetings with the mayor. I've had meetings with the city council and the liaisons to the fire department. I have been there and done it. I understand it. I know how it works. I'm able to sit down at the table on January the 1st and go right to work. And I'm not saying no one else here can, but I feel like that I can do it better. I've lived my life in Roswell. I love this town just like Shayne does. I was raised here. I was raised on 40 acres at the corner of Henry Road and Elkins Road, where now a subdivision sits. I moved up the street and live in Roswell on Upper Henry Road, where subdivisions have surrounded me again. And it's okay. But I want you to know that I served you for 39 years as a firefighter. I helped save lives and protect property. When I retired as the fire chief, I said, I think I'm finished. But then again, after I thought about it, and after this seat came open when Becky Wynn left, I didn't wait until the last day of qualifying. I jumped on it June the 25th. I let everybody know that I am qualified, I am ready to go, and just vote me in and see how proud you will be that you voted for Ricky Spencer. Because I'm ready to go. I love this town, and I love everybody in it. And we all just can't be happy with everything, but I want us to try to be happy with each other. And I think that's what Roswell is all about. The quality of life we have, the people that live here are great, and I love it. I love it.
What I bring to the table is 32 years of private sector experience. I've been in the financial services industry since 1984, and as my career progressed, I got involved in many major projects. And some of those projects required me to justify expenses and the cost of various projects that we're developing. One of the things I learned along the way is how to do a cost-benefit analysis. And I think that's one of the things that we're missing on City Council. We're not doing cost-benefit analysis. What is it going to cost, and what are the benefits that we derive from it? So that's one of the things that I would bring to the council. My wife and I moved down here 29 years ago, not 19. 29 years ago, when my company at the time, we moved here from Cedar Rapids, the company at the time said, we're going to move you to Atlanta and take over some business down there. And when we did that, and we found out that was going to happen, there were a number of our friends who have been to Roswell, and they said, if you're moving to Atlanta, you have to go to Roswell. It's this beautiful little community. It's kind of country, small town, and has a lot of character. And so we moved down here. We raised our kids here. We have 2 adult children now that live here, live in the area, and 5 grandchildren. And I want to preserve Roswell for them. The same thing that we found when we came down here. My daughter, my son, and their spouses want to stay for their children as well. So I'm very passionate about preserving the historic area of Roswell, very passionate about making sure that the density is right for the surroundings, and I have some concerns about some of the projects that are being proposed, and I feel that I need to get on the council to make sure that the right decisions are made. I didn't make the decision lightly. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We are now going on to next set of questions. We will start with those 2 this time. And with any luck, before we get to your closing statements, we'll have enough time for each post to have 2 questions. But I need you to all stay your time limits. So we're going to get through it. We got to keep going. So post 2, starting with Mike. What about the 2030 comprehensive plan would you change or adapt as the 2035 plan is developed?
So, first of all, I really like that the comprehensive plan, I feel, does take into account a lot more participation from the community than a lot of other decisions that are made. So again, I want to see even more participation in the comprehensive plan, and especially even more participation in really all the decisions that are affecting our community. Specifically, with it, what I would like to see in the 2035 is I want to go ahead and see more specifics on talking about density and different goals there, because it's not highlighted in the UDC, and also because there are vague aspects. Again, we all discussed at Riverwalk the fact that the developer's lawyer pointed out that the comprehensive plan specifically mentions that if they give extra green space, they can take extra density. I feel that's very vague. And I feel with the City Council's voting record, there's been a number of different projects where really residents have opposed it, and still we've seen City Council supporting it and voting for it. So my big thing for what I'd like to see in the comprehensive plan is more specifics from the community on what do we want out of our city. What do we want from a density standpoint, all those aspects, because again, there's the vagueness. And for example, again, mentioning the specific bold statement in the comprehensive plan that mentions transportation improvements are required prior to any major development going in at the Riverwalk project. Of course, it doesn't mention Riverwalk, it mentions the quadrant, but nevertheless, I'd say completely I'd like to see more specifics.
We went further than ever before to have a vision conversation with the whole city, which is not required, by the way. It was an ambitious undertaking that helped guide the creation of the UTC and its guidelines, to update our master transportation plan, the Gateway Master Plan to get rid of those horrible reversible lanes on Highway 9, the creation of Roswell Inc. for our economic development arm, and the guidance for zoning decisions. Every 5 years, the state of the Department of Community Affairs requires cities to update a comprehensive plan which defines the city's vision for the next 20 years. The comp plan defines how a city will move forward from parks to economic development and housing to transportation. It also keeps us in a line for better interest rates, grant funding, and other benefits to the city. Well, this year it's time to update it again. And we have to make sure that we're keeping our vision on track. And there's a focus on what we want to see in those areas where commercial meets residential. The state has changed from looking at, quote, character areas, unquote, to more specific language. And the transition planning is so very important, and this plan will prioritize it. And I just want to let you know that the 2035 Comp Plan Advisory Committee consists of approximately 27 people, and they come from all walks of life. They are community leaders, they're people like us sitting up here, they are developers, they are faith-based, They are MARTA, and they are educational people and health and welfare people. So we have a very good, diverse group of people who's going to look at our 2035 plan and look at it very, very closely.
Thank you. Moving on to post 3, I'll just call you as you go. We're going to start with Don. 60% of Roswell streets end in cul-de-sacs. What, if anything, would you do to increase vehicular and pedestrian connectivity in Roswell?
The 60% are
60% of our streets end in cul-de-sacs. What, if anything, would you do to increase vehicular and pedestrian connectivity in Roswell?
there's not a whole lot with existing cul-de-sacs that you can do. Very frankly,
Is your mic on?
I'm not sure what can be done with existing subdivisions where they're 60% in cul-de-sacs. I'm not sure what can be done to improve connectivity there. Obviously, sidewalks would help. There are certainly, from a transportation standpoint, roads can be improved. But I'm not sure what you can do with a cul-de-sac, existing cul-de-sac.
Okay, thank you.
I think the questions partially get to the heart of maybe solving some of the traffic problems by alleviating some of the cul-de-sacs. I think the idea theoretically might be that there's more through traffic, and like he said, there's nothing you can really do with existing retrofitting, trying to create new roads that go through existing cul-de-sacs, about tearing down homes and stuff like that. So I don't think that's really practical. To increase connectivity, though, if you're thinking of it from the perspective of being able to get from one place to another in a short amount of time, well, then I think that there's a lot of different things that we can do. One of the most basic things that I think I see in the city much resistance to is increasing the size of the lanes of the roads, the traffic in certain areas. Other things that we could do to help out and alleviate kind of the traffic issue is ending some of these bottlenecks that are naturally created where, all of a sudden you're in this through lane and it turns into a right turn lane that, creates little traffic jams that, constantly clog up the city itself. Adding turn lanes to some of the lights on some of these side roads and throwing in some roundabouts in some of the areas where it makes sense. Not every area there's a roundabout makes sense. But all these are different little things that can be done if you look at it from we need to solve the traffic problem perspective, just to kind of alleviate the traffic, which would then increase the flow and the connectivity of the city as a whole.
Thank you. Shayne?
Well, the number is 60%, but the actual number is 1,300. 1,300 of our roadways end in either a dead end or a cul-de-sac. When you have 1,300 stops, where's your connectivity? I agree 1,000%. There's nothing you can do with existing structures. However, when it comes to what's coming, what's next? As I was talking about this earlier, I absolutely agree that any developer that comes to Roswell, we are highly desirable. Developers want to come here, they want to build here. Well, we need to hold their feet to the fire. The very first thing that we need to say is not what's your density, not what's your, is it going to be brick, is it going to be stucco? That's not the most important. What do you bring? What plan do you bring to Roswell to help with the traffic? Are you going to take a 16-acre plot of land and put 80 houses on it? Or are you going to take a 16-acre plot and potentially connect two major arteries where it will alleviate some traffic? We are in a paradigm where we have to shift. We have to look at not just the public sector. We need to look at the private sector. We need to look at the developers that are coming here, and we need to hold them accountable. They need to bring solutions to the table. They need to be paying for the right to build within our community. Thank you.
And Ricky?
I am not in favor of taking a cul-de-sac street and making it a connected street to another subdivision or another area. We have some streets in Roswell that have been closed, boarded up, because they have been used as cut-throughs. We have streets and neighborhoods where people have asked the Roswell Department of Transportation to come in and please put in calming devices because people are speeding through their neighborhoods. I'm all for traffic calming devices. I am not in favor of taking a subdivision that is quiet and people buy in Roswell in a subdivision that may be in a cul-de-sac because they want cars coming by the house all the time. I like that. I live on a main road. I have cars coming by my house all the time. There's nothing I can do about it. Our traffic problem is not because of the people that live in Roswell. Our traffic problem is because of the people that come through Roswell to get to Atlanta. Cobb County, Cherokee County, Forsyth County, Alpharetta, John Street. They come through Roswell. And the only way to stop it is put up gates. We know we're not going to do that. If we didn't have people coming through Roswell to spend their money, to come back and eat at our restaurants, to come to the Cultural Arts Center and do things we're off to spend money here, then we're cutting our legs off. So I am not in favor of cul-de-sacs. Through streets are being closed. Traffic common devices are being installed in subdivisions. In the fire service, that is terrible for us. It slows our response time down. And when we go through there at night or when it's raining real hard and they don't see those traffic common devices, it's rough on the trucks. So I can't support that, but I am for walkable communities, and I think that we can open those communities up and people can walk from one to the other, but not drive cars. We've got too many cars.
Thank you. And I think if you did put up those gates and maybe a drawbridge in the river, you'd have a lot of support. I need to run again. That's my platform. Okay, post one, starting with Rich. The City Council is requiring that taxpayer-funded art be installed at the new fire station 4 near Publix and Sky Zone. What are your thoughts on public art? What specific action will you take to either encourage or discourage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think art is important to our quality of life as a city. And I think it just adds so much depth to us as a community. But there is a limit to how much money you actually want to spend. We're spending 2% of the budget on the fire station on public art. And I think that is a pretty sizable amount for an individual project. But I do think the value we're going to get from it is fairly significant. I think the art, we have learned, or I have learned, over the last few years, a whole lot more about art and the impact of art on the community than I ever knew before. We have a really active Roswell Arts Commission that has really opened our eyes to the importance of that and what that does for the community as a whole. And I've really taken note as I've gone to other cities. My wife and I were up in Seattle not long ago for a family wedding. And we noticed that in several of the surrounding cities and in Seattle itself, there were just places where there was some art. And it just added so much to the feel of the community. It just felt so much better. So I do think that public art is important. I think we need to take baby steps because we're really starting to learn what's important to the citizens of Roswell. But I do think it adds a whole lot of value. And it's one of those things that when you think about, we have so many needs, why are we spending money on art? It comes back again to quality of life. What do we want to do for our city to make our city that much better, to make it feel that much better, so we can walk down the street and be proud of it? We certainly don't want to take all of our money and just put it into underground infrastructure that will never see. I'm sure that's important, and we need to do that. But we also need to educate our citizens, educate our children, and have them experience culture and art, because it really changes your life and really it really helps people enjoy a higher quality of life.
So, regarding public art, I totally support the public art. I think that eventually, takes society to the next level. And, but you have to be smart. You have two kinds of public art. You have the visual and the performance art. So, if we talk only about the visual, there's some places in town that we can work on that, as Riverside, around the River Park area, we can work with some nice art in there. Then behind the City Hall, we can work on some nice art there. But also we have to be careful. I understand that this current city council approved $500,000 to decorate the bridge on top of 400 and Horton Bridge. So this, instead of being sitting there 10 minutes doing nice art, it might be nice to sometime invest this money in more infrastructure, but then we don't have to spend 10 minutes on top of the 400, especially people who come from the east side. So yeah, it's very nice, it's very important, I think it takes society to the next level, but we have to prioritize where we put the money on. So that is my point.
Thank you. This is our last set of questions before we reach our closing statements. We'll start with those three, beginning at the end with Ricky and just working straight down the line. The question is, the UDC states that rezoning should take into account the character of the neighborhood. What are some of the things that can define the character of a neighborhood?
Can you please repeat the question? I was on that fire station question.
I don't even if you want another big truck. The UDC states that rezoning should take into account the character of the neighborhood. What are some of the things that can define the character of a neighborhood?
The character of a neighborhood, I feel, should fit with the neighborhoods around it. I don't think that we should allow someone to come in and put a cottage development in an area where 6 houses were sitting and now they want to put 113 in. That doesn't match good with the neighborhood around it. I'm at all because I see things going on in Roswell, houses being built. I talk to a lot of people and I talk to seniors about housing. And some of the seniors that live in Roswell now have lost their husbands or lost their wives, and they want to stay in Roswell, but they don't want to stay in that big house. And I think that we need more neighborhoods built in Roswell that are not so expensive that the senior people cannot afford to live in Roswell anymore. And the UDC is just to me, it makes things simpler. It's got pictures, and I like pictures. But the UDC has got to be redefined and tweaked constantly to get it where it works best for Roswell. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
The UDC states that rezonings should take into account the character of the neighborhood. What are some of the things that can define the character of a neighborhood?
I think the biggest thing that defines the character of a neighborhood is the people that live in the neighborhood. Every neighborhood is going to be unique. Every neighborhood is going to be different, and I think it's really hard for the UDC or for anything to look at any one given neighborhood and say, this is the character of the neighborhood, so in response, this is what should be built. I think character changes over time, so just the same as character changes over time, I think that the plans and the zoning need to be able to adapt. They need to be able to change over time, just like anything else. But I really think that when it comes down to the heart and the soul of it, that the character of any community is really going to be those people, whether they're old, whether they're young, whether they're rich, whether they're poor. And it's those individuals ultimately that are going to be the ones that define what the city is going to be.
I think the character of neighborhood often is defined by the size of the lots, the size of the houses, the amount of coverage those houses are in those lots. It's the roadways in and around the neighborhood, what the neighborhood feels like. Is it a country feel? Is it more urban feel? Those are the kinds of things that certainly do have an impact on the character. What I would say is, what the UDC doesn't address is how we transition from high-density commercial corridors out to the lower density estate-sized lots. And you can't take a development that, as Ricky said, 7 houses on 20 acres and try to squeeze in 113 houses next to a neighborhood where they have 1 or 2 houses at most per acre. That completely destroys the character. So I would like to see in the UDC define what is a transitional approach to development. Around the corridors, around the commercial corridors, that's where you can have high density. You've got high density there anyway with the commercial enterprises, and that's where you can have high density in terms of townhouses and cottages and that sort of thing as well. But as you move out away from those commercial corridors, then you need to transition from the more dense to the less dense and even less dense as you get further out.
So, quick history, backing up a little bit. The house that my grandfather built in 1911, the bungalow, looks totally different than the house that my father built in 1962 on King Street. It's a rambling ranch, brick ranch. I couldn't agree more that character changes. Character to me is defined very simply, and it's the way we do things around here. And the way we do things around here needs to change in this capacity. We need to look at what's being brought to us. Density always seems to be the dirty word. I'm not a huge fan of overdensity, of course. That's not what I stand on. But density is a bad rap. There is, like you were mentioning earlier, density in the commercial corridors, it's a very good thing. It's a good idea. As long as the traffic the traffic plan is extremely well thought out and allows for multiple entrances and egresses to multiple different roads. That's key, especially in the commercial corridors. But when you look at the heart, when you look at the true essence of character, every person up here, no matter if you like what they have to say or not, every person up here truly wants to be that defender of character in Roswell. Nobody wants to turn this into Midtown. Nobody wants to turn this into Vinings. We want to maintain Roswell the way it is with a very keen eye on the future of my children and my children's children.
Starting with Marcelo, explain your view on the balance between progress and preservation.
So that's a good one. So, well, it's a very fine line. I think we all have to look into preservation history because, Roswell has 161 years of history that we cannot forget about as a character, a charm, values. So we cannot forget this ever. And then progress have to adapt of what we define of what we want in Roswell. So, they have to be, again, similar to the answer here, that they have to be according with the character, the preservation of the history and the progress. Based on that, we cannot take totally different roads of that. So, all the development have to contemplate the preservation of our nature. We have the river, very unique. Alpharetta doesn't have the river. So we have so many unique things here in Roswell that we have to preserve and maintain the progress tied to the history of Roswell.
First thing that comes to my mind is protecting the neighborhoods. When we think about preservation in terms of Roswell long-term, I'm sure there's historic preservation. I think that's very important. I'm an architect by background, and I believe in preserving our history. I absolutely believe in that. But I think where we are in Roswell right now is we are very attuned to that. We are looking at our history. We are preserving our natural spaces. We are preserving our older homes. But the big battleground right now is preserving our neighborhoods. They are critically important, and they are what makes Roswell Roswell. Somebody said it earlier, they were talking about character. Character is the people who live here. The people live here because they love their neighborhoods. I think if we do nothing else, moving forward, we have to make sure we preserve and protect those neighborhoods and make sure that they're not negatively impacted by what's happening around them. We see that right now through a couple of the developments that are being proposed. They're going to have some negative impacts on our neighborhoods, and we need to preserve and protect those. As far as progress, there's always great ways to move forward. And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. So you have to move somewhere. And I propose that we move forward. One of the things that we can do is continue to work on some of our aging apartment complexes and our older shopping centers. The city doesn't own those. All we can do is help. We can provide infrastructure, we can provide streetscape, we can provide incentives for property owners to take the next step and to have some progress. So absolutely, we need to think about new ideas. I think one of the great things about having an election is all of the new ideas that come out. I've heard a lot of really good ideas tonight from some of the folks up here about things that we need to do, we need to be looking at. That's progress, and it really comes from all of you giving us feedback and helping us move Roswell in the right direction.
Thank you. The last question. Going to post 2, and still on a similar theme, starting with Becky. Do you favor higher residential densities in Roswell?
Yes, I do, but I favor it in certain areas of Roswell. One thing I do have to say this is that every landowner has the right to ask for a rezoning, does not mean to go and get it. And I do have some statistics here that says that since the UDC, we've had 23 rezoning requests, 13 were approved, 5 denied, 5 withdrawn. And of those 13, the majority of them were the revised site plans and the additional conditions were community driven. So yes, I do listen to the community and I do work with them. But I do believe that we do need to look at, if we're looking at walkable communities, we have to look at higher density residential areas, but we have to be very careful where they are located to make them a true walkable community.
So this is a great question. Can you actually reword the exact word, repeat the exact words? I love this question.
Yes, the exact words are, do you favor higher residential densities in Roswell?
And so with that, I'm going to start my answer with an answer teachers would give us a lot at Emory when I was getting my MBA. It depends. And so with that, it really depends where. It depends on, is it somewhere that really is truly in a walkable type area, where we have these commercial centers where there's pretty much abandoned shopping centers. In that type of area, that is where I would support it. Is it an area where there's already an apartment building and where you could really gain by having a lot of improvements to that apartment building? That is somewhere I support it. My big frustration, and I've talked to a lot of residents that really have been experiencing this and having to live with this, is the fact that the current city council has been approving rezonings in locations that are not truly walkable to anything commercial and aren't in the right areas for the infrastructure around the traffic and around the character. And so with that, and it's something that I absolutely do feel is very true, and it's something where with this higher density, I think we are really risking irreversible changes to Roswell, because I think there's a number of different neighborhoods that would really be in here and be very local. For example, in East Roswell, and I mentioned earlier Phelps Road, where my opponent had supported that project, and City Council had approved that project, which had much higher density than really the current residential communities around it. And specifically, another example where I feel that the people of Roswell aren't listened to, because that was an example of a project where there was a lot of outrage. Another example is, if you're familiar with Canton Street, there was the Vickers project, where there's already such traffic issues, there's such historic character and all those aspects, and that's an issue where fortunately City Council has turned it down, but my opponent has supported it. So I say it depends, but I think you know where I stand on this issue. Thank you.
I do, can I rebut? Do I have a minute to rebut this? I'm sorry? 30 seconds. Fowles Road, yes, it is a higher density because it was agriculturally rezoned, that's how it was zoned, it was agricultural. But we got the developer and the community together, and the revised site plan and the additional conditions were community-driven. That's how I voted for it. Vickers was not a rezoning. Vickers was a conditional use and 2 variances. I did not vote for the variances, and I did vote for the conditional use for them to have up to 80 condos. So it was not rezoning, and they have the right to build up to a 3-story building without any of the council's approval on that one. So I just want to clarify this too.
Thank you. All right, that's starting with Rich Dippolito.
First of all, I'd like to thank these Roswell Alliance for organizing this forum. It takes a lot of work to put this together, and I really appreciate all the effort that went in. I'd also like to thank my wife Kelly and my daughters Caitlin and Kristen, whose love and support enabled me to serve each and every one of you. I've talked a lot tonight about quality of life, and I think that's something that is really important to the Roswell residents, because every person I talk to mentions it. They talk about how much they love Roswell and why they live here. They live here because of the quality of life. We have beautiful neighborhoods. We have wonderful recreation and parks. We have wonderful culture and arts. And we have really terrific schools. And all those things go together to make a city that is vibrant, that is growing, that is strong, and that is just a really wonderful place to live. So that's why I really consider, when I think about Roswell and why I'm doing this, I do this really to help protect and enhance that quality of life. That's really the nature of what I do and why I do it. It's why I serve. It's why I spend a lot of long nights and a lot of long meetings. And I'm happy to do it because it just helps enhance our quality of life.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can I say thank you?
You can say thank you.
I just want to say thank you for being here. It's important for all of you to come out, give us your opinions, and be part of the community. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Next is Marcelo Zapata, who is also running for Post 1.
Okay. Thanks again to the East Roswell Alliance for hosting this forum, and to all of you for attending. I'm very proud to be a citizen of this great country and this wonderful city. I'm running for Roswell City Council because I know Roswell can be better. This country is unique because government flows from the bottom up, not from the top down. That means that local government has greatest responsibility to the voters. But our current city government has lost sight of that. The issues today are different from those when my opponent was first elected 8 years ago. We need fresh perspective, a new conversation between the residents, new representatives who will listen to the voice of the people. We need to encourage small business and smart growth. Our city council needs a citizen perspective, not a development perspective. When I'm elected to Post 1, I will represent you, the voters of Roswell, fairly, and I will make sure you have the access you deserve to the people you elect. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Now moving on to Post 2, and for each post, I'm repeating their names. They really want you to remember their names on election day. So, Michael Palermo.
Thank you. I really want to thank the ERA for hosting a great event, and I also want to thank everybody that came out. I really appreciate it. It's important to hear who is here asking you for you to hire them, for you to vote for them. And I really am excited for this opportunity to get to serve the people of Roswell. As I've talked to so many residents all over Roswell, I hear over and over about how much we all love Roswell, but how much there's a concern of the direction that our city is going. And with that, we really see that decisions are made that ignore strong objections by residents. The city council has been following their own agenda and really bringing us in the wrong direction. There were many examples, but the most important is they changed our zoning rules to allow substantially higher densities, and we've seen the results. Exactly that kind of higher density that is out of character with Roswell and a strain on our infrastructure. My opponent supported changing the zoning rules and is consistent and has consistently voted in favor of developers and much higher densities in the wrong places, ignoring residents' wishes. This is really why I'm running and why I want to support you. I really appreciate the opportunity to earn your vote. Thank you.
I want to thank the ERA for hosting and the citizens for coming out on the last night of Live After 5 and being here instead. Roswell is fiscally sound. We have a AAA bond rating. We have a balanced budget, no millage increase, and improved services. Because of these accomplishments, the city has invested in the East Road complete streets, the Horton Bridge Road multi-use trails, the HBR SR 400 interchange improvements, and the River Corridor Master Plan, all of which will enhance and preserve our quality of life. Many hard decisions have been made during my 2 terms on council to protect Roswell's neighbors and its citizens when it comes to what we wanted in terms of redevelopment. To counter development pressures with the improving economy, revised ordinances were put in place to send a clear message to developers that neighborhood protection is our priority. The city cannot stop landowners from asking for rezoning, but we can manage and condition their requests so we can preserve Roswell's character. If elected, I will continue to be your community advocate and your voice. Thank you.
We're now moving into post 3, starting with Donald Shayne Gray.
Shayne for short. So, it won't be.
How's it going to show up on the ballot? That's what
Shayne Gray.
Okay. All right.
So, I'm a bit of a talker. Being from the car business, we tend to talk. And so when I found out that I had 1 minute to surmise everything that could possibly go on in Roswell, I looked at my wife and I said, what should it be about? She said, well, it should be about 1 minute long. So I look at the way that Roswell is today. I look at the way it used to be. I look at what's happening, what's coming down the pipe. I'm a Gen X. My wife is a millennial. I have tons of friends who are millennials who live in this community. They are looking for something that's a little bit different than what boomers are looking for, and even the people from my generation are looking for. I have a very unique dynamic of understanding both the boomer and the millennial, because I'm right in the middle. And like I said, I study generational studies. Well, my time is up, but like I said, 60 seconds goes quick. Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate your time tonight.
Next is Don Horton.
Thank you. Also want to thank the East Roswell Alliance for hosting tonight's event. I believe our current city council is on the wrong track. They're on the wrong track about development, they're on the wrong track about priorities, and about the kind of city that the people of Roswell want to live in. They changed their zoning rules to remove density limits, to increase lot coverage, and to reduce setbacks. And as a result, we are seeing a surge in development of higher densities than Roswell has ever experienced. All while truly blighted areas continue to be neglected. Let me be clear. We need development, but it must be on our terms that protect our neighborhoods and focuses development where it is needed. We must preserve our historic district and some of our few remaining large open spaces like 7 branches. I may not be the city council's or the mayor's top choice for this post. I'm not a government insider, nor am I part of the good old boy crowd. However, I am committed to actually hearing what you say and representing your interests. And to do that, I need your vote. Thank you for being here tonight.
I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with what a white elephant is, but a white elephant was a gift that a king would usually give to somebody he didn't like. The reason he'd give it to him was because the animal was completely sacred and it couldn't be used for work, and the person would essentially go bankrupt trying to keep the animal alive, because that's what was required. The way I look at it, millennials, my generation has been handed a ton of white elephants, and we're the ones that have to pay for them. Everybody on this stage said they're excited about acquiring new land, except for the guy that actually has to pay for it, the one that's actually going to be here as all of these different bills and obligations actually come true and come due. So the reality is, if you're looking for somebody that is going to find a way to spend a lot more of the city's money on vanity projects, anybody else here should be on the left. If you're looking for somebody that's actually going to pay attention to the budget, worry about necessities, worry about the needs of the city, I'm probably the only person that will do that. Thank you.
First, again, I'd like to also thank the East Roswell Alliance for putting this one together, and I want to especially thank my wife for standing behind me and pushing me in the direction I need to go. She's been a savior. My passion for the city of Roswell has always been at the forefront of why I'm running for city council. My 39 years as a firefighter and the last 10 years as a fire chief demonstrate how much I care for this community. After my retirement last September, I soon realized that I wanted to continue to serve you, the community. I made to do it was the perfect opportunity. I reached out to many people for support, and I received support. I have met with many of the City of Roswell department heads, asked them about their current and future projects and how I can help them when I'm elected. They were very appreciative and told me that no other candidate had asked to talk or meet with them. This should show you, the voters, how much I want to move this city forward and preserve our great quality of life that we all enjoy. Roswell is a great place to live, work, and play. I have enjoyed living here for over 60 years. I have a great deal to offer, and your vote for me will be a vote you'll be proud to make. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our forum for tonight. Thank you for coming out. I want to remind you, there are 2 more forums on the 21st and 29th. The candidates will be here for a little while longer. If you didn't get your question answered, I'm sure they'd love to. And I want to ask you to all join me in a round of applause for our candidates.